Those of you who are really observant might have noticed that I'm not Alex Lamy. Well, while Alex is away on tour with some random composer, I think his name was Hans Zimmer? I'll be jumping in for a couple of videos. My name's Claire Wickes, and like Alex, I'm also a British composer. And in this episode of Virtual Orchestration, we're talking about meter. Not quite. We're talking about musical meter. When we talk about meter in music, we mean how we organise music over time. When you're writing music, you could just endlessly put note after note into your score. But this would get really confusing after a while, and you'd get lost quite easily. And let's be honest, it'd be a bit of a mess. So we divide time up into bars. The length of one bar, also called a measure, can vary. The most standard length of a bar would be 4/4, written like that. This means that in this bar, you can fit 4 quarter notes or crotchets, or any equivalent to that, like 16 16th notes or 2 half notes. Well, these two numbers tell you how long the bar is, and we call that a time signature. The bottom number tells you what you're counting in. A 4 means quarter notes, an 8 on the bottom means 8th notes, a 16 on the bottom means 16th notes, and so on. The top number always tells you how many beats there are in the bar. So 3/4 means 3 quarter notes in the bar. 12/8 is 12 eighth notes in the bar. And on top, you can really have any number. For example, 7/4 or 11/8. You write the time signature at the beginning of your score like this, or you can set it in your DAW like this. The time signature doesn't have to be the same throughout your piece. It can change any number of times. For example, you could start in 4/4, then have a section in 3/4, and end in 5/8. As well as helping to organise music on the page, the time signature has more impact than that. The first beat of a bar is usually a strong beat, so by choosing a certain time signature, you also choose a certain pulse for your music. Of course, that's not to say that every first beat always has to be emphasised. There can be all kinds of exceptions with syncopation and offbeats, etc., but it can be a good starting point. One obvious example of where you find a strong first beat is in the time signature 3/4 and what it's best known for, the waltz. Like a lot of musical styles, the waltz started off as music that accompanied dance. And even though you might think of it as something quite formal and proper today, the original Viennese waltz was actually really daring for the time. It was the first dance where you were pressed up close against your partner, and it was fast, so you were whirling around the dance floor, getting dizzy, and possibly spinning off into some dark corners. The reason that it was so good to dance to was exactly this driving pulse with a strong first beat of every bar. You know, pa, pa, pa. Think of Michael Giacchino's cue that starts the animated film Up. He takes this uplifting waltz and makes it utterly heartbreaking by slowing it right down and just using sparse piano chords with the melody. So there's certainly a wide range of possibilities with a waltz as your starting place. You could move on to other more free variations of 3/4. This time signature can take on very different qualities, especially if you add a long melody. Let's leave that romantic terrain for a bit and talk about 4/4. This is by far the most common time signature, especially in pop music. And we're so used to hearing groupings of 4, 8, or 16 bars that we actually come to expect these. Now, let's confront the 4/4 stereotype head on. Just because something is in 4/4, that doesn't mean it has to be boring. You can use different rhythms within a bar so that it doesn't feel monotonous, or you can change the emphasis of the beats. One very familiar example would be emphasizing the weak beats of the bar, 2 and 4. You all know that because every crowd clapping along at a gig has done this since the dawn of time. You can take that a step further with syncopation, that is, stressing an offbeat, and things can get even more complex. Plus, you can have rhythms or melodies that go over more than one bar and can make you feel like you're not in 4/4 at all. You could kind of look at that as a bar of 7 and then a bar of 9. Nothing wrong with that. We're moving into the world of compound time signatures. We've covered simple time signatures so far. I'm not just saying they're simple, that's literally what they're called in music theory. So 3/4 is simple triple time, 2/2 is simple duple time. You get the idea. Let's look now at the next category, which is compound time signatures. These are time signatures like 6/8, 9/8 and 12/8. Now, the crucial difference between simple and compound time signatures is basically the way you divide up the beat, or the way you would count the bar. Take, for example, 3/4, which is a simple time signature, as opposed to 6/8, which is a compound one. Now, if you do the maths, these bars are the exact same length. They're both 6/8 notes long, but we count them differently. In 3/4, we'd count 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Whereas in 6/8, we'd count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So although there are 6/8 notes in the bar, you actually only have 2 strong beats. Although the length of the bar is the same in 3/4 and 6/8, the emphasis is different. So in compound time signatures, the beat always breaks down into groups of 3, whereas in a simple time signature, the beat can be divided into 2. It can actually be really effective to have 3/4 and 6/8 next to each other in the same song, even though you might find that weird at first. One famous example would be Leonard Bernstein's America from the musical West Side Story. I like to be in America, I like to be in America, I like to be in America, I like to be in America. Next up are complex time signatures, also called irregular time signatures. These are my personal favourites, to be honest, as they kind of give your music a lot of inbuilt rhythm, and partly because they encourage you to be a bit more creative. Now, while compound means you divide your measure into groups of 3, complex time signatures, as the name suggests, are a little less predictable. They include any time signature that's not simple or compound, for example, 5/4 or 7/8. There are loads of examples of complex time out there. Think of Mars from Hosts the Planets, or the Mission Impossible theme, which are both in 5/4. The irregular time signature is really a feature of Holst's piece. What makes complex time signatures so intriguing is that they can't be grouped easily in terms of where the beat emphasis is. We usually start to divide up the bar into smaller units of 2s and 3s. Now, with complex time, there's not only one way of dividing them up, but various different ways. Dividing up 5/4 could be a 2 plus 3, or a 3 plus 2. Likewise, 7/8 could be grouped 2 plus 2 plus 3, 2 plus 3 plus 2, or 3 plus 2 plus 2. Here's a practical way you can use complex time, especially in film scoring. 7/8 is a really useful time signature if you're scoring something playful or fast-paced, like an action scene. Because the emphasis can change, it keeps the audience on their toes, and it can feel unpredictable. You can also use a complex time signature to make an extreme special effect. This might sound crazy, but classical composers have been using this trick for a while. One example that I absolutely love is in Stravinsky's work, The Rite of Spring. He puts in a single bar of 11/4 to really drive a point home. Tell me in the comments if you think he went too far. In film scoring, especially for action movies, it's really common to change time signatures pretty often in order to hit the sync points with your music. If you want to know more about scoring action scenes, check out Claudio Ragazzi's video. So, that's it for time signatures. Tell me in the comments what the craziest time signature you've ever used is, and what the challenges were with that. So, I'll go back to clapping to myself, and see you in another episode of Virtual Orchestration. I like to be in America. I like to be in America.